folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McKusick, and we're doing the season review for wide receivers today. It is the next to last. We still have the outside linebackers to do, but joining me for the wide receivers today is Sam Njoku. Sam, how you doing?
Pretty good. Lots of good, interesting hires right now for the Ravens. So very excited to see what they do. But let's get down to the wide receivers. A very interesting topic for a lot of Ravens fans.
I think in a lot of ways, the only fan base which seems to be having more fun relative to their normal amount of fun this year right now is the Giants, who are just going crazy with news about hires and all the positive Harbaugh effects. And they still have to actually play some games and win some games from this, but boy, they're excited about all the possibility, and lots of requests coming in to be on New York podcasts about these possibilities. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Giants fan, you're at minimum, you're going to get a massive restructuring. The way you think about football, at least from an organizational standpoint, is going to change considerably. So great hire. John Harbaugh is going to be one that's going to go there and set the culture the right way. Of course, you got to win the football games, but at least he's on the right track to get this Giants team to where the Ravens were a few years ago.
Yeah, good luck to them, certainly. All right, let's talk about the Ravens wide receivers a little bit. A few high level notes. Obviously, a great year from Zay Flowers, and we'll get into that in some detail. But also a disappointing and very steep drop off from Bateman.
I am shocked, to say the least. I've been trying to find the reason for it. I mean, you could point to a lot of different things. The run game not being successful being probably predominant for a lot of the problems with this offense, but it is very almost, I guess you can say, intriguing how Rashod Bateman fell from grace in 2025 as opposed to his 2024 stat line, which looked like he was on the rising, edge to be one of the top, X receivers in all of football.
Yeah, I absolutely. And, he had a lot of yards. He had very high, his metrics for yards per target were the top ever in Ravens history. His touchdown percentage was the highest in Ravens history for a wide receiver. So, pretty astounding drop off. But Lamar's injuries and I think the mediocre play of the offensive line both hurt the passing game. And once again, the offensive line doesn't have a lot of excuses for their poor play. I don't think they were playing through a lot of injuries. So Linderbaum had some sort of thing he was dealing with early in the year. But the rest of the line, I think, the staggering mediocrity of the line makes it actually a very difficult problem to fix. You can't just say get rid of both guards and it's all going to be better. The whole line as a whole is not that great.
Yeah, every single player on that football field from the offensive line standpoint regressed in 2025. So it's not just Falele, not just Voorhees, even Stanley, even Rosengarten. They all looked a shell of themselves in 2025. The reason for that, hope the Ravens coaching staff figures it out, because you're right. Just plugging those two guards in, whoever those are, to try and fix this offensive line will not be enough in 2026.
And Lamar's injuries, we can't. I mean, I'm not saying they're Lamar's to blame. I'm not sure I'm making any change. I don't think it's a concession to age, which is the most important fact here. I think Lamar Jackson, 26, if healthy, is going to be back to playing like Lamar Jackson, 24, has a chance to be. And they're going to need to use the read option as some part of the offense. It's too much of a gain for both the run game and the passing game to be able to use the misdirection component that Lamar brings to the offense. And I know a lot of people say, just make Lamar a pocket passer and they can, screw the way they've been playing offense. You can't do that. I mean, you need to use Lamar's, misdirection value to this offense, or you hamstring it completely.
Yeah, you're taking away what makes him special if you take away the read option, RPOs. All of those things are what make Lamar Jackson special. It's what made Jaden Daniels special his first year, which is why I'm sure a lot of Ravens players would love to have Cliff Kingsbury as the new OC. I know there's a lot of give and take with that, but you can't take away the read option. It just hampers the run game. So Derrick Henry's who he was in 2024, and in some aspects 2025 because of the read option. They need to continue to build off of that in 2026. No matter what, that should be the primary focus for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, so among the tight ends, the wide receivers, there's some themes that there's solid individual play from the wide receivers in some cases. Bateman being the major exception. Wallace also took a step backward, but Flowers certainly had a good year. We'll get into some of those individual plays, but maybe a factor in the wide receiver reduction of potency is the fact that tight end game dropped off a cliff between 2024 and 25. They had 2023 and 24 combined. You know these statistics by heart if you listen to the show on a regular basis, but 143.5 passer rating, 30 touchdowns, and 1 interception. 2025, 91.3 passer rating.
That's tough. That is tough. You're not going to get very much in the way of passing the football, especially the way this offense is set up. If your tight ends aren't doing what they have to do, and of course they are synergy with the wide receivers. So of course, if the tight ends drop, don't be surprised if the wide receivers as a whole drop. You could see some improvement. I think Zay Flowers had a pretty decent year, as you mentioned, but overall, this receiver group is going to lack the punch if the way the offense was built in 25 doesn't get excellent play from their tight ends.
Right. And to get excellent play from their tight ends, we have to know who their tight ends are for next year. Mark Andrews had a tough year, and that was the kind of the starting point for that. And he's the one we know will be back. Moving on, Odell Beckham, he's gone, and they finally paid him off. Well, I mean, he played for the Ravens in 2023. He's still $10 million of the Ravens salary cap in 2025 after they had this complex restructure of him to allow him to be a post-June 1 cut last year, which then pushed more dollars into this year and actually ate about 3% of the Ravens cap in a little over that. In fact, almost 4% of the Ravens cap in 2025.
Yeah, looking back, maybe not the best decision to get Odell Beckham to do that. I mean, that was tough. That is one of those things.
Here's what I want. I want more people to be able to look back on that and say, you know what? This should guide our future actions in some way. There's not one Ravens fan in 100 that really wants to do that. Okay, that's not true. There isn't one Ravens fan in 4 who really wants to do that and say, let's learn from this mistake. How do we avoid this kind of a contract in the future that doesn't make any sense, and the downstream implications of it? Or what did we learn about dead money and void years from this contract?
You think they learned their lesson? I mean, there's been other instances where, well, maybe not with the Ravens, but throughout the league where it's just been a bad idea. And Ken, you were right on it from the moment that was done by Odell Beckham, that it was not a good contract. And I mean, we paid dearly for that these last couple of years.
I think a lot of people were on that fact. And to be honest, I don't want to put down the Ravens fan base in general, but I think there were plenty of other people who look at this. What do you mean? It's only $3 million and change against the cap in 2023. And they looked at that number and they don't even care about the downstream implications. Well, the fact of the matter is the Ravens are now coming into a very tough moment in their history where they're towards the tail end of a lot of multi-year deals. Jackson, still have Stanley is in the same position. They have Roquan and Humphrey. That's 4 cornerstone contracts where they're coming down to the wire on these last 2 years of all of those 4 contracts. They're incredibly expensive right now. And in most cases, they've only taken about a third of the pain from them so far. They've only paid about a third of the cap cost. The cap cost is coming still. And they have some ability to get rid of these guys and save a portion of that money. But most of that, money's already been spent. You don't have a choice in terms of getting rid of somebody. With Humphrey, the savings is $7.3 million this year. With Roquan, just about the exact same, $7.3 million. They can save next year if they cut Roquan, they can save $20 million, and I'm sure they will. If they didn't extend him somehow, but they can't cut Lamar Jackson, and he's $75 million each of the next 2 years.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the owner talked about potentially adding void years to Lamar's contract. I would much rather extend Lamar Jackson. Let's get it done. You don't want to be in the situation at a latter portion of this deal where you're paying this guy loads of money when he's not even on the football field or on the team. So extend him, make sure he's a Raven for years to come, and don't put this dead money, dead cap, these void years on the books that's going to hurt you years down the line.
Yeah, well, I think it directly has to tie to some other decisions they make. If they can't get him extended, I don't see them signing Tyler Linderbaum. And I'll say this, that it's not a matter of not having the money, because they can manipulate around and get the money to pay Tyler Linderbaum and keep Lamar Jackson on his current deal, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a matter of, do they want to invest in Linderbaum if there's a risk that Lamar isn't around? I don't think it's worth it. You do it for that reason. So extend Lamar, 4 more years of Lamar, extension, attack the end of his contract, big number. It'll be a record-setting number when it hits, and then you sign Linderbaum after that's in the haze in the barn in that direction.
Absolutely, no qualms for me about that. You got to get Lamar's contract done. That should be the primary focus. You can extend him, that hampers your ability to sign free agents in your own this year.
All right. I'm looking at Tez Walker as being one of the key players in terms of additional responsibilities this year, but it doesn't mean they don't need a draft pick either. So where are you looking to get the growth from this unit, which is pretty thin after the big two?
Yeah, again, you mentioned Tess Walker. He's a guy you got to see what you got with him. The potential's out there. This will be his third season upcoming. Find out what you got. The sky's the limit for this guy. The floor is low, I'll admit that, but the ceiling is very high. So find out what you got with that. I don't want to bring in another, I mean, you can bring in a veteran guy, but nobody that's trying to, knock their way into the top three. I like the receivers you got. Obviously, you want to draft somebody to get in here and provide some special sauce to this receiver unit. But I like what I see from Tez Walker. Bateman disappearing has me concerned for 2026 as well. But you know what you got with Zay Flowers. You got a couple of years left before you have to make that decision. But they're not too far off. They just need to, add a little piece here, add a little piece there, but not push the way like they did with Odell Beckham in 2023.
All right, let's talk Zay Flowers. He made his second Pro Bowl. He's been a great receiver, obviously, for 3 years, but his targets are not what you would get for a receiver for any other team that was playing with a Zay Flowers talent level player. Yeah. He's gone from 108 to 116 to 118 targets in his 3 years in the league so far, which is not at all matching with how his per target productivity has increased from 7.9 to 9.1 to 10.3. By the way, very hard to increase your targets and increase your yards per target. It's very hard. You tend to get more marginal targets. You tend to be more of a bailout guy, but very hard to cut that double.
Agreed. I would. He'd be amazing a receiver if you have that type of increase in targets as well as increasing yards. That means that you're making even better use of your opportunities when you're getting the ball in your hands or even getting the ball targeted to you. So no surprise there for sure. But, Zay Flowers is still doing more with less.
Unbelievable crossing route demon he became this year. I mean, it's just that was the go-to play for the Ravens was him between level 2 and level 3. We've always talked about how he creates a lot of separation right at the top of the stem because he's small and can put his foot in the ground, as opposed to larger receivers who have to decelerate by sitting in the chair and sinking their hips. That's a big difference and a big advantage for Zay, and it creates huge separation amounts. I mean, he streaks across the middle. There's no one who can stay with him once he's cut, and there's nobody who can stay with him at the cut within any distance of him. So somebody has to take that away from him, usually like a safety coming down to chop the head off the snake there to basically rob that route is the only way you can stop it.
Yeah, and if you remember earlier this season, especially before the start of the season, we talked about how we would love to have Zay Flowers to be more of that intermediate guy because he had that skill set. And we thought it'd mean that we get more of LaJohntay Wester, didn't have that. But instead, what we saw was the Ravens still making their best use of Zay Flowers, still making sure that he's in the intermediate passing game. And he was very successful, almost astronomically so, in speaking about how he's been able to do what he does in the middle of the field. Hopefully he's able to build upon that in 2026.
Yeah. Wester, a player I didn't even include in my notes for this show. And the reason is he played some offensive snaps, but he had 0 targets. Yeah. All the Ravens wide receiver targets were focused in the 5 guys we're going to talk about. But Wester is somebody we probably need to include in the look forward to 2026 in terms of, is there a spot for him on this offense to get some more playing time and get more involved? What to talk about? Zay Flowers, ADOT was down a little bit this last year, 34th out of 47 receivers. That it speaks to the amount of gadgetry that he's still being used for. Those are guys with 75 plus targets. He was 10.1 ADOT, which is not very high for a wide receiver. Thus the 34th out of 47.
Yeah. Yeah, they're still using him in those gadget plays, something that we were hoping would be minimized a bit here with LaJohntay Wester's addition. But with Zay Flowers getting a lot more opportunities, they're finding any way to get him the football, give him the football in open space, give it to him in any intermediate game. He's the guy. He's the number one guy for the offense. And a lot of Ravens fans are thinking, oh, the Ravens need a number one wide receiver. Oh, I think they got one. And Zay Flowers, at least that's what the Ravens are using him. They're utilizing him as much as a wide receiver one as they can in this type of offense.
Yeah, he's not an X receiver, so he's not the guy who eats up the space budget. But I say, I don't care. if he can play on the right side anywhere, okay, and I'm standard 3-by-1 formation, he's typically going to be on the right side of the formation, not on the left side of the formation as an X. So if he can play anywhere on that strong side of the formation and be as effective as he's been, that's worth more, because you can there every year there are guys who are potential to be talented X receivers that come out and use that space budget. Bateman is an excellent player who should be able to take advantage of it, and it hasn't worked out so far exactly the way the Ravens hoped. Certainly didn't in 25. Maybe Walker is a guy who could do it, but the fact that you've got a guy on the right side who can be as productive as he's been is remarkable.
He is phenomenal, especially at creating separation in this offense where, there's not a lot of balls to go around. He is demanding just by his presence alone to be able to get targets his way. Lamar Jackson trusts him a bunch. The play of the offensive line, as you mentioned, was not superb. So being able to get the ball to him quickly was very paramount. The Ravens did that. Obviously, the season doesn't go the way it does, because of the play of the offensive line and the defense. But Zay Flowers was definitely a bright spot. And it's very interesting because I think that Rashod Bateman is the better route runner, but Zay Flowers continuously finds ways to get open and make plays on the field, which is a testament to his skill set and his overall specialness.
Well, one thing about it is Zay Flowers breaks and then he accelerates to create more separation, whereas Bateman's point of greatest separation is going to be at that break, which means he wants to have an on-time throw made that is very shortly after the break. He's going to want to have that done. It's just not who Lamar is as a quarterback. And so, we talk about every year we bemoan it to some degree, how we'd like to see a little bit more of on-time throws by Lamar. But I can count on not even probably two hands the number of comeback routes on the sideline that I've really ever seen him throw. It's just I'm not saying there haven't existed. I mean, I'm talking about the ones I can remember right off the top of my head. I don't think it's even two hands worth. Where it's been literally like the old Derek Mason route, where he's either coming back or he's going on an 8 or a 9 kind of thing. They don't use that.
Yeah, not at all. I'm not sure if it's the offense, if it's Lamar, as you mentioned, or a little bit of both. But you're absolutely right. Rashod Bateman is not. I know why the production wasn't there in 2025. It's just an overall, magnification of the problems that Rashod Bateman's had all his entire tenure here. It's just he's a timing receiver, and unfortunately, Lamar Jackson doesn't play football that way. And that's a positive, and it can be a negative for a guy like Rashod Bateman who's looking to make his way into the top tier of the NFL wide receivers.
Now, did we move? We didn't move over from Flowers. We still have a few more things to talk about on Flowers
sure.
before we move on to Bateman. We're in danger of doing that. But Yak dropped off a little bit for Flowers this last year from 6.2 to 5.6, but he's still in about the 75th percentile of receivers. That's good. He's still above his expected Yak, which is about 5.4. Now, I don't know about you, but I kind of think of Zay Flowers as being a guy who typically looks to go down or makes some often unprofitable U-turns to try and find space but expected Yak per reception would tell you a different story.
Yeah, I mean he is definitely, that has been one of the knocks on Zay Flowers is I guess the unfortunate desire to try and make something out of nothing. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, that is surprising that his Yak is as low as it is, considering that he's one of the speedier receivers, one of the quicker receivers. You think it'd be higher, especially given his tenacity to do something like that.
Yeah, to point it out, it is still very good at the 75th percentile,
Yeah.
but he's above his expected. So that's something. He beat his expected by about 17 yards. That's not nothing over the course of the season. You think about that, that's about 1.5% of his total yards. So it's worth a little something. 16 missed tackles forced, was 7th in the National Football League among wide receivers. How cool is that?
It's really cool. And that tells me that not only is he getting quicker out there, he's getting stronger. I mean, you hear the missed tackles like that. He's a small framed guy, but I saw it in the offseason, during the preseason, and now, you got to see it in the regular season. This guy's getting stronger and getting more comfortable out there, taking the big hit and making, plays happen out there. So that's pretty cool for a guy his size to still be breaking tackles like that.
It's to be clear, I think these are the PFF missed tackles, and they do include like elements of elusiveness. So oftentimes a player will try and make a tackle, and Flowers may make a miss just by stepping completely out of it before he even makes contact with him in some cases. So it's a great number no matter what, however he's getting them. It's the 7th highest in the league, which is terrific. And the 6 guys ahead of him, only Deebo Samuel did it with fewer receptions. So the guys who are ahead of him all have many more receptions than him in order to do it. So I think Puka is up there and some other players. I almost guarantee you that almost any receiving stat, Puka is going to be at the top, because all of the aggregate stats, he has so many at bats that he's going to have a lot of everything.
Yeah, Puka's the guy. I know John Harbaugh wanted him, but it's good company to be in for sure for Zay Flowers. He's amazing. He's the guy that Ravens need to really consider bringing him in and sign him to a big contract before it expires. But it'll be interesting to see if Zay Flowers wants to return. But yeah.
So we didn't talk about this yet, but the 5th-year option decision is coming up on Zay about $28 million for year 5. Is there any world, or do you think the Ravens ought definitely pick that up, or do you think they definitely don't pick it up? Do you have any strong feeling about it?
I think they definitely pick it up. I think he's just the best receiver on the team by far. You got to pick it up, considering, maybe he needs another guy. People have talked about maybe George Pickens coming in to play opposite him. Regardless of what you do, make sure he's on the team. Give yourself a chance to get the most of a young player with a pretty decent contract.
I'd be excited to get another good receiver in the draft. I think that's always a good thing. And if they had 4 receivers, including, let's say, a comeback from Bateman and Flowers and Walker takes a step up, and another draftee who's in a developmental stage, doesn't have to be a 1st or 2nd round pick even. That's all that is potentially exciting. I'd really, really be unexcited about trading or acquiring a vet through the free agency process at this point, who's very expensive, because I don't think they have the dollars to spend at the position. It's not even a matter anymore of getting value at the position anymore. They could get a reasonable value contract, and it would still hamstring them in so many other ways in terms of putting together a roster. I couldn't see them doing it.
There's too many holes in this team. Well, I won't say too many holes. They don't really have a lot of holes, but the holes that do have will be expensive. Focus on those on the defensive and offensive line.
Let me tell you about the online cannabis company that's changing the game, Mood.com. They created an entirely line of functional gummies, 100% federally legal THC blends, discreetly delivered right to your doorstep. And here's the best part. You can get 20% off your first order at Mood.com with the promo code RAVENS. Now, I've tried a bunch of their gummies myself. Each one's totally unique. The Sleepy Time gummies knock me out right away. They help me unwind fast, leave me refreshed the next morning. The Epic Euphoria gummies, they're perfect for when your day just isn't going the way you want it to go. What makes Mood special is how they pair the THC with natural herbs and adaptogens. You won't find blends like this at any local shop. They've got gummies designed for focus, relaxation, clarity, even energy, all made from cannabis grown on small, family-owned American farms. No pesticides, no shortcuts, just high-quality weed you can trust. Plus, Mood backs everything with a 100-day satisfaction guarantee. So head on over to Mood.com, check out their amazing selection, and don't forget to use the promo code RAVENS at checkout to save 20% off your first order.
Sometimes it can feel like everyone else has it together in their love lives. Whether married, dating, or single, the truth is most of us are still figuring out and finding our way. February is a tough month, whether you're single or married. You may feel pressure with all the talk of flowers, candy, stuffed animals, relationships, and dating. Therapy can help you identify what's dragging on your relationships and find ways to brighten them again. Whether it's for individuals or couples, it's an opportunity to identify what's getting in the way and help remove obstacles to happiness. That's where BetterHelp comes in. BetterHelp has quality therapists who work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the United States. BetterHelp does the initial therapist matching work for you so you can focus on your therapy goals. A short questionnaire helps identify your needs and preferences, and their 12-plus years of experience and industry-leading match fulfillment rate means they typically get it right on the first try. If you aren't happy with your match, switch to a different therapist at any time. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 6 million people globally, and it works. With an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 stars for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. Sign up and get 10% off at BetterHelp.com. That's BetterHelp.com. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hi, folks. The Super Bowl is here, and MyBookie is where you can turn your bets into bankroll. Are you scheduled to go to the Super Bowl party and you don't want to be there? Yeah, I've been to that party too. Managing your portfolio of wagers through the evening can be your ticket through Super Sunday without getting caught up in your brother-in-law's political rhetoric. Whatever your take on the game, MyBookie has both side and prop bets to make your Super Sunday a lot of fun. That's why I use MyBookie. You've probably heard them talked about on Jimmy Kimmel Live for their deep board of prop bets. These bets become some long-lasting memories, including watching Refrigerator Perry score in Super Bowl 20 at 100-1 odds. If there's ever a time to get in, it's right now. One account, one wallet, bet the spread, live bet the second half, hit the casino during commercials. It all lives in one place. Go to mybookie.ag now, use promo code Ravens, and get your first bet covered up to $500. If it doesn't hit, use your bet back bonus token and run it back. Don't just watch the big game, make it pay on MyBookie.
This episode is sponsored by Kalshi, the largest prediction market in the United States. Kalshi lets you trade on real-world events, peer-to-peer, instead of playing against a sports book. Kalshi is available across the country, including California and Texas, and it's a really fun way to put your predictions to the test. So here's how it works. You buy a yes contract if you think something will happen, or a no contract if you think it won't. So if you've got an opinion this weekend, like will the Seahawks win the big game this year, you can choose yes or no and trade on it. And you're trading with other users similar to buying and selling stocks. You can jump in and out of your position at any time to lock in a profit or cut your losses. Kalshi also offers combo trades where you can connect multiple predictions across different events to increase your potential payout. In short, Kalshi is where you put your money to where your prediction is. So download the Kalshi app and use the promo code SB60. When you deposit $10 and make a trade, you get your $10 back. That's promo code SB60 on Kalshi.
Yep.
I think you got a good set of receivers here. Again, we mentioned it earlier. Plug in a couple of young guys here and there through the draft, and you're good to go. I don't think there's any reason to bring in somebody that's going to cost you $130 million over the course of 4 years.
Right. Now, this year, fumbles again. One of the big issues with Zay Flowers. One of the opposing team talked about how the Ravens had a bunch of speed skaters with the football who would go out wide with their elbows, and they knew they could take advantage of that. Hands also a concern on some plays. Sometimes it looks like he's working with chopsticks and ball goes through his hands. He had an interception on the right sideline in one of the later games of the year. I forget if it was Cincinnati or Pittsburgh in the first game, where it bounced off his hands and right into the hands of the defensive back near the right side. Obviously a frustration. What can you do besides hope and coach on that?
Hope and coach. That's it. I mean, he is a dynamic receiver, but he does have fumbling issues. It was the Patriots that I believe mentioned the little skater thing, and I can't get it off my head now. All they do run like skaters in some aspects. So I think in the offseason coaching, I'm sure that'll be a focal point for Zay Flowers. He looked very frustrated with each fumble that he had throughout the year. I'm not too concerned about it, but it is a knock on his game for sure that needs to be rectified if he's going to round out and to be a top 10 receiver in this league.
Right. Had a pretty healthy year this year, which was good. The only other concern I have is that he's now been at the nexus of 3 different bad game management situations for the Ravens. Now, was it his fault? Was it somebody else's fault? I'm not sure how much it matters. What matters is I want his on-field awareness to improve. Now, just to remind you of the 3 again, Indianapolis failure to fair catch in his rookie year actually cost them the ball game in that week 3 game. So he fair caught a free kick after a safety, didn't allow 3 seconds to run to the 2-minute warning, which basically would have allowed the Ravens to kill the clock and not allow Indianapolis to have a chance to get back into field goal range to tie the game that they won in overtime. Against the Chargers the next year, he ran a sweep, and as soon as the Ravens, completed the 3rd and 5 first down, they had the game won and the ability to kneel it out. Flowers just had to go down. Instead, he scored. And not the end of the world, but the code words sure as hell should have been in the huddle there. They won the game anyway, so it didn't cost them a football game in that particular case. Still a bad game management play. And then number 3 was this year where, 64-yard touchdown it was an obvious. Obvious. It was a fantastic win probability option to kneel at the 1 yard line. They didn't do it. Enormous mistake from a football strategy perspective. I am aware that there are code words that could have gone in the huddle to say exactly that to the player. Okay. Basically, if you throw in the word Geronimo onto the play call, that means go down at the 1 yard line if you happen to get in the free, free run situation. Didn't see Flowers look back to the sideline on that play, which would have been another possibility for it. But, an unfortunate game management situation that he just happens to be right at the heart of. And, when these things kind of follow around a particular player, I get more and more concerned about it. I mean, we've seen Roquan Smith make great plays on the field, high awareness, third level plays in terms of, letting a guy get up from a tackle to run the clock down to the 2-minute warning, for example. And then you see Flowers make 3 mistakes of a similar type, and I get very worried.
I didn't even realize that Steelers non-kneel. I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. Yeah, this whole time. Wow, I didn't even realize that. Had he taken a kneel, that would have been it. Oh man,
well, it would have been a high probability. It would have increased their win probability a lot. By the way, if you haven't seen, I'm sure if you're a regular listener on this show, you've heard me talk about this, but there is a podcast out there that was done with Rohan, and I'm going to get this wrong because his name sounds like Pineapple Rumble, but it's Panaparamble. Okay. And he said his words, not mine, in terms of Pineapple Rumble. But Rohan did a great job of putting together some win probability analysis on that we did in a pod, and it's just extremely well done. But you might want to take a look at that, Sam. It will depress you more about the way the season ended.
Oh man, no, I mean I gotta watch it. I'm a glutton for punishment. I gotta listen to it. But yeah, you're right. I mean that is a thing. I will say some of it's on coaching, some of it is on Zay. I would say, but yeah, especially the sweep. I feel like there's no way they didn't tell him to go down at the 1 yard line. Yeah. Obviously, that one didn't affect the Ravens, but you're right. That will come down to him understanding it. Hopefully, the coaching staff hammered down that point. But those are one of those things where you hope for the best.
Let's take apart the sweep for a second, because if it's Lamar Jackson, there's no doubt in hell he slides right down as soon as he's got it. I mean, there've been any number of other instances where he slid right down under those circumstances, including one that completely didn't matter, which is the one they were just below the Fangio line, meaning getting 100 yards of rushing for the game. Yes. And they went out a shotgun. They ran up a QB power left, and he just slid down after about a 5-yard gain. I mean, you're supposed to know what your team needs. That's what you have to have some level of awareness on that.
1000%. Zay needs to learn that, and hopefully these games matter more as the weeks progress. You've seen him not only in poor game management, but poor fumbling, as we talked about earlier, in key moments. He's going to have to get that under control, because the Ravens are going to be counting on him for sure these next 2 years to get this team over the hump.
Yeah, great player. Don't want to in any way indicate that that's not the case, but it's hard to find something that a player really needs to work on. In Zay Flowers' case, extra time on the jugs gun is good. Extra time going through the fumble drill if the fumble gauntlets they have is probably a good thing. They need to have some real-time method to have them go through the possibility of a fumble that more replicates it, and that maybe they don't know somehow is coming in practice. Like, it could just be that an assistant coach on any particular run drill play might run up behind the running back and try and pop the ball loose.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I mean, how cool would that be? Now, unfortunately, that doesn't really involve Zay Flowers, because he's, but you could do it on 7-on-7 drills. Some assistant coach could be behind the play, and he's watching Zay's routes or something like that. But if he takes a short route, he goes up and he tries to knock the ball free from behind.
Yeah. Anyway. I like that. That's a good idea.
All right. Anything else on Zay before we move on to Rashod Bateman?
No, fantastic player. Again, we're nitpicking here, but he is phenomenal. He's only going to get better. He's still in his rookie deal, so the Ravens need to hurry up, take advantage, win a championship, and use that light contract to get ahead on here, because he's only going to demand more money. He deserves every penny. Yeah,
and honestly, if he were to have this year again and they can't get him signed to a long-term deal, I think it's a very high probability. It's likely, more likely than not, maybe, that they would trade him before that 5th-year option. Some other team would pay him that, and they'd actually sign him to a new deal for 5 years. And hopefully they get quite a bit for that. Hopefully he'd be a guy they would get, a 1st or 2nd round pick in exchange for if they trade him. But if you could trade Marquise Brown and get a high 2nd round pick, we'll call it, with the exchange,
right?
You'd have to believe you can get a 1st for Zay Flowers.
1,000%. If you can trade Brown, you can 1,000% trade Zay Flowers for good value. Good value.
All right, let's move on to Rashod Bateman a little bit. Targets dropped off a cliff from 72 to 38. His productivity also off a cliff from 10.5 to 5.9. It's so dramatic. I can't even say. He only had 2 touchdowns after posting 9 touchdowns the year before. It was the highest rate in team history for a wide receiver at 12.5% of his targets. I'll look at the numbers every time. I just shake my head.
I'm speechless. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm still trying to find a reason for the drop in production. I know the offensive line, again, is a concern, but Zay Flowers, again, as you mentioned, was still able to get a decent amount of looks his way. I'm not sure if this was Todd Monken just not focusing on Rashod Bateman enough, but yeah, 38 targets is ridiculous for a receiver of that stature. I know a lot of Ravens fans are much maligned in regards to Rashod Bateman as a player, but I mean, he's still a great player in my opinion, and the targets are definitely an eye-opening experience that the Ravens will need to work on because they need to get him involved in his offense.
So he was healthy for 13 games instead of 17 the year before. Maybe that explains a little bit of the target drop, but it doesn't explain the big drop in terms of yards per target. It probably explains a little bit in terms of the TD. Passer rating dropped from 132.2 to 81 throwing the ball to him.
That's another. You're throwing stats here that I just cannot explain. Usually you have a good answer for a lot of these, but this is just unheard of. I mean, again, I didn't sense a drop in production or a drop in whatever he's good at. He's still effective route running wise. So very interesting, the reason behind it. I guess you can blame the offensive line, like I mentioned before, but I still think Todd Monken had something to do with this. Not necessarily anti-Rashod Bateman, but trying to get the tight ends more involved and not succeeding in that regard either, and trying to force Zay Flowers to get the ball more. I can't explain it. The targeting and the passer rating dropping is also considerable. I guess you could say that maybe the lack of Lamar Jackson in some games may contribute to it as well, but
sure.
Now, overall, it's been very interesting to decline in production.
That would be a factor, and also the health of Lamar Jackson. When he was in there for a lot of the season, Lamar wasn't Lamar, and he had a off year in some ways. Even he finished with a 103.8 rating though, and Bateman is at 81.1. Right there, there's kind of a problem because Lamar should have been lifting. Okay, there's Cooper Rush is built into that 81.1 to a little degree, and so is Huntley, which might have dropped him some, but it's really hard to see. I think one of the things I would point to is that there were not as many extended play opportunities for Lamar this last year, and Bateman had been very good on extended play opportunities, been an extended play target for him in 24 in particular.
Yeah, and that's also a knock on what I mentioned earlier with him not being very much aligned with Lamar Jackson because Lamar likes to extend plays. But you saw in 2024 when extending plays, Lamar Jackson will look his way, and there was success there. So another reason, I guess, injuries could play a factor, as you mentioned, all of that. But again, very interesting, the drop off this year. I'm very interested to see what the Ravens do next year in 2026 with Rashod Bateman. The focal point has got to be to get this guy more targets, especially with you think the departure of Isaiah Likely is upcoming, which means they need to get another guy to fill those targets.
Right. And, Mark Andrews had a terrible year too. So there's not a reason why wide receiver targets in general shouldn't increase.
Yeah.
I do think that they'll get another tight end or two in the draft, maybe a veteran as well, or maybe Kolar will be back. They've got a few different ways they can go in terms of rebuilding that tight end room, but they've got to figure something out. I don't think it's going to mean as many targets for the tight end. I think that's probably, I completely agree with you on that matter. Now, they just signed Rashod Bateman, of course, to an extension, which keeps him in Baltimore, I believe, through 2029. They can get out of that contract at some point, but at least for now, they'd be foolish to do it. Did have an effective run blocking season. So that's something. And by the way, here's the reason why the run blocking is important. It's not even important for the sake of the value of the run game last year. Although I generally speaking, I want that. It's important as an indicator that he still wants to work.
Yes, that is 100% right. Run blocking, especially as a receiver, is all about effort more than anything. If you want to, the want-to is there. That's what we were concerned with Odell Beckham coming in, with DeAndre Hopkins coming in, with these old receivers who expect a lot of targets in the past, be down to be run blocking receivers. Rashod Bateman, he's okay. He's part of the program. He understands his role. Still is run blocking very effectively. One of the better run blocking receivers the Ravens have, maybe even the best.
Yeah. I mean, Wallace had a real off year after being great. So that was a shame, but yeah, you might be the best right now. Zay Flowers works hard at it too, though. I'll say that. One thing that I think is a big deal for Bateman. I don't think he really needs to go back to the drawing board in terms of receiving skills. Like, there's a lot of players, Tez Walker, maybe Zay Flowers to a certain extent, could go back to learning mechanics of running after the ball, learning mechanics. I don't think in Bateman's case, it's the mechanics. I think he needs to actually spend time with Lamar Jackson this offseason. And I don't know what their relationship is like. I mean, you never really know with two players how they, have rapport with each other. But it seems like Flowers and Jackson are a lot closer than Bateman and Jackson. That's my take on the situation. And if I were Rashod Bateman, I'd be getting an apartment for the summer or for the spring, wherever Lamar Jackson is going to be. And whenever there's a chance to go out and, throw the football, be ready, and obviously that's a little bit of an overstatement of this, but he needs to be ready to travel quickly when Lamar wants to go out and throw the football around.
1,000%. That's a great take. I think you're spot on. I mean, Lamar Jackson's relationship with Zay Flowers pales in comparison to any other receiver in that locker room. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins had a decent rapport with him, but I think it's been the Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson show. You see it time in and time out. When Lamar Jackson has a relationship with you, a la Hollywood Brown, a la Mark Andrews, he tends to throw you the football more. So I agree. He needs to get a rapport going with Lamar Jackson. I think it's been the knock on Rashod Bateman for the last couple of years now. I also agree with you in the fact that I don't think he needs to change anything in this game. I think his game is very complementary to what the Ravens have outside of himself in the locker room. So, yeah, get the rapport down. Some of that's on Rashod, some of that's on Lamar Jackson. Now get into back to Baltimore, doing these, mandatory mini camps or what have you. Get these guys going, especially now that you have a new head coach. You want to be the leader there. So, but I agree with you completely. Get the rapport down, get flying in 2026.
Yeah, really good point there about wanting to make your impression on a new coaching staff. And it's not, if you know a head coach, new offensive coordinator, you got a new offensive line coach. You want to make an impression on all those guys. Roquan Smith doesn't miss practices. He's there because he wants to be the leader of that defense. And whatever you may think about Roquan Smith's productivity, I think positively of any way of it. I think that much more positively when he's around for those OTAs. And I hope Lamar will do that.
He better. That is literally, when I think of the 5 things I'm looking for between now and September, him being available to every single mandatory practice there is paramount to me, especially with the new head coach, as you mentioned, new OC. You had a down year, injuries notwithstanding. Get in there, get the report back with your receivers, and make sure you don't have a repeat in 2026.
All right. Now, we saw some social media comments the last couple of days from Bateman.
Yeah.
Maybe the last week or so. And in one case, something was put, and I don't even know what it was. I don't know if it was Instagram or whatever, because somebody on Reddit basically took a picture of it and posted it on Reddit, and that's where I've seen it.
Yeah.
So I have no idea. Instagram, was it Instagram?
Instagram, yep.
Okay. And so then about a few days later, and I don't have an idea of timing because I wasn't looking at Instagram, he came out and put out another thing about how somebody else hacked his phone. Somebody he knew hacked his phone. Now, that could mean somebody he knew just picked up his phone while they were together in a bar or whatever, kind of thing, or at his house and types some stuff in. How do you even begin to unpack this situation?
Yeah, I don't know if he was hacked or not. I mean, that's what he says. You take it at face value. It definitely sounds a lot like what he would put on social media. So if you'd ask me, do I believe he was hacked? I'd say probably not. But regardless, I think that it's just a testament that he wasn't very happy with his stat line. And, neither was I. So I get the frustration. You don't want to have 38 targets in a full season of work. So I get his frustration. But he has to do what he has to do to make sure he rights the ship. Some of it's on him, as I mentioned. Some of it's on Lamar. Some of it's on the coaching staff. So
in a sense,
yeah,
all of it's on him. Okay. I mean, yes, the coaching staff will figure it out, but in some cases the coaching staff will figure it out because they'll figure it out. But the guy who's most incented, who's absolutely most incented to figure it out is Rashod Bateman, damn it.
Mm-hmm.
This is your career. And it's like any employee, any business, this is what you end up telling it. Yeah. Okay. His relationship, Johnny and Susie don't get along. Okay. And Johnny works for you. You have high hopes for the guy. You think he has a lot of talent. And Susie may be a little bit of a pain in the ass and makes Johnny's job harder than it should be. And Johnny then retreats and decides not to do things and hamstring his own career because of Susie's behavior. All right. It's still Johnny's problem to overcome this. It's his career who's down the toilet if it doesn't work out. And that's the situation we have with Rashod, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, you got to put your big boy pants on. If Lamar's the reason why you're not doing well, sure. But Lamar's the one that's got the 2 MVPs. If the coaching staff's the reason why you're not doing well, if you want to say that, sure. But the coaching staff's going to be here long after you're gone, most likely. So you want to be a big-time wide receiver, you got to overcome obstacles. He's done it all the time, all throughout his career. I'm not really the guy that, likes to make excuses. Just go out there and fix it. So he needs to do what he needs to do to get out there and be the best receiver he can be. You looked at the professionalism. We looked at what he's done on the football field. Excellent route runner. I mean, no one's taking that away from him. Probably one of the best route runners in all football, if I'm being quite honest. But he has to put it together on the field. He has to put it together on the stat line. And if he does so, he'll be talked about. If not, could be a little bit less likely to have Rashod Bateman on the football field in the future.
Well, I certainly hope that's not the case. The contract is a good value for the Ravens, and they need him to play up to it. He said it's extremely rare to have a receiver like this who has such a dyadic pattern of quality of play. I mean, he's on year, off year, on year, off year. Now he's not done it for 5 years. I think it's 5 years of off on, off on, off. yeah, basically. It's incredibly frustrating, and you don't know what you're going to get. The next time he steps out there, I have no idea if there's a work ethic component to it. I look at his run blocking. I hope that's not the case, but then you see a big decline, and you wonder, well, how did this happen? Then, I can come up with some of the reasons. I can't explain the whole thing by it.
I can't explain any of it. I can't. Yeah. It was such an anomaly. And the offense was all around inconsistent in 2025. And we know the reason why. But still, even with that, it's alarming almost how bad he was in 2025 from the stat line aspect, because he was so great in 24. You thought it'd be at least a little less or more of the same in 2025. He was a drastic contrast from what he did in 2024.
All right, we're going to come back in the second part of the show and talk about 3 more receivers, actually 4, the needs for 2026 and how the Ravens are going to move forward. And we'll do that. Sam, thanks so much for joining us, first of all, but where can people find your work?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, Ravens Talk Podcast. We have shows every week. We have another show coming up on YouTube. You can catch the full episode on there. You can catch us wherever you get your podcast. You can also find me on the Locked On Ravens Squad show with myself, Kevin Ostreicher, and former Ravens Super Bowl champion Kadri Ishmael, talking Ravens football twice a week on Mondays and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m.
All right, outstanding stuff. A lot of great content. I highly recommend Sam as a follow on Twitter as well. Other folks out there, use hashtag Film Study Mailbag for questions. Love to hear from you. Please like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube, and give the YouTube Shorts a chance if you haven't. They're out there, and they're 1 to 3 minute, highly concentrated information where I'm essentially speed reading this stuff. That if you don't want to listen to an entire episode, you can listen to them and get some of that content there. And again, they're out there on the YouTube Shorts channel. Sam, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.